We'll give you $200,000 in alimony, so please divorce our son and leave this condo. Matt isn't to blame, but since we are receiving this condo, we should pay you compensation. Seeing my father-in-law make such a proposal, I was initially a bit irritated, but the moment I realized their huge misunderstanding, I couldn't help but chuckle to myself. I thought, seriously, I kind of feel sorry for them since they're so wrong. And when my husband and his parents found out the truth, their faces were unbearable to watch. My name is Kelly, and I'm 30 years old. While working in an office, I lived happily with my beloved husband. I've been married to Matt for a year now. We were starting to think about expanding our family, but his family visited often, making it hard for us to have some time alone. Our condo was right near my husband's parents' home, and his sister's family also lived close by, so they frequently dropped by, sometimes without any particular reason. The view here is nice. I'd like to live in a place like this too. When my mother-in-law said this, my father-in-law nodded in agreement. There's a vacant room. Why don't we all move here? Hearing this, my husband smiled and responded, that sounds great. We could save on rent for the family home, and it would be more fun for mom and dad to be here. When it comes to the condo, my husband talks as if it's his own, but in reality, it belongs to my brother. However, my husband somehow thinks that marrying me made it his. This misunderstanding started when we decided to get married. When we visited my family, my husband and in-laws were really surprised to find out that my parents had already passed away. It must have been tough without your parents. My brother, however, responded, it wasn't too long ago that our parents passed away, so it wasn't that hard. Even though my brother explained clearly, I felt that my in-laws somewhat looked down on us. No offense, but this house is a bit old. Weren't you struggling financially? They said. When my mother-in-law made a slightly harsh comment, my brother just went along with the conversation. Sorry to worry you, and thank you. Although my brother said this with a smile, we weren't really living a hard life. Our parents' home was quite old, which probably led my in-laws to think that we had a tough time after losing our parents early. My father passed away about 2 years before our wedding and had worked for a large corporation. My mother, a housewife who supported the family, had passed away a year before him, and both did their best to raise us until we were independent. I had told my husband about our family situation, but it seems it wasn't communicated well to his parents. What do you do for a living? When my father-in-law asked this condescendingly, my brother calmly replied, I'm self-employed. My brother owns quite a bit of real estate and earns a significant amount from just the rent. The condo we live in is entirely owned by him. Even before I got married, I was living there for free. I guess self-employment isn't going well. That's why you have to live in such an old house. My mother-in-law made another rude comment, and my brother's wife countered lightly. Yes, it's old but spacious. Cleaning it is quite the task. My brother's wife said this, but there was a hint of sarcasm. However, my mother-in-law didn't get the nuance. My brother's wife, who has always been kind and like a real sister to me, seemed a bit angry at my in-laws' behavior but managed to navigate the situation smoothly. When the atmosphere became a bit tense, my brother skillfully changed the subject. So, you two will be living in the condo where Kelly is staying after you get married, right? When we nodded, my father-in-law had something else to say. How can Kelly, who is said to have no money, live in such a luxurious condo? I was a bit disheartened by his words, but my brother laughed it off, easing the atmosphere. The condo was bought with the inheritance our father left us. I was surprised to see my brother lying. Just as I was about to reveal the truth, my brother's wife subtly stopped me. What? Kelly bought that condo? I thought it was rented. You've been quite modest about it. My mother-in-law was clearly in a panic. Seeing this, my brother nodded with a bit of pride. I always honestly told my husband and in-laws that this condo was rented. I don't pay rent, but the property is in my name, so what my brother said wasn't entirely a lie. The attitude of my in-laws changed drastically after they started to believe my brother's story. They still looked down on my brother somewhat, but they suddenly became friendly towards me. After my husband and in-laws left, I complained to my brother. Why did you lie about the condo being mine? Matt's parents are completely mistaken now. When I got angry, my brother replied in phased. Well, they seem to underestimate you, so I just played a little prank. But you see, once they thought the condo was yours, their attitude towards you changed, right? Indeed, I felt like my in-laws had been underestimating me, but after my brother's comment, they began to treat me with more warmth. My brother's wife was also worried about me due to the rude behavior of my in-laws. Be careful with Matt's parents. If anything happens, you can always come here to talk. I was feeling a bit anxious about my in-laws, so my sister-in-law's thoughtfulness was very comforting. My brother told me to keep the truth a secret, so I haven't told anyone that the condo is actually his. It was shocking to realize how lightly my in-laws regarded my brother, but it wasn't a problem since we were not living together and I was happily married to Matt. Since my in-laws' home was nearby, greeting them for holidays was easy. That's how my new life started. I thought I had forgotten about this incident, but then an unexpected visitor showed up. I had planned to visit my in-laws' home, but to my surprise, my in-laws and sister-in-law came to our condo. I thought we'd go and visit you for Christmas. But what's the occasion? When I asked my in-laws, who had suddenly arrived for Christmas, my sister-in-law chuckled and said, the place is warm and the view is nice, so we just stopped by. Don't mind us, Kelly. Despite her words, I had to rush around serving coffee and snacks. Kelly, I'd prefer roasted turkey over the usual Christmas dishes. Can you order some? My mother-in-law requested roasted turkey. Matt immediately picked up the phone and ordered from the restaurant. Did you know your parents were coming? When I asked Matt, he looked surprised and said, why are you mad? It's normal for them to come to our house, no? Matt had heard from his parents that they would be visiting for Christmas, but they hadn't mentioned it to me at all. For Matt, having his parents over seemed completely normal, and he implied, as a wife, you should welcome them without complaints. Reluctantly, I took care of my in-laws. Even as the night grew late, they showed no signs of leaving. Are they planning to stay over? While I was pondering, Matt started giving orders again. Prepare a place for my parents to sleep. Kelly, you're not very attentive. Matt only gave orders and didn't help at all. I had to prepare a room for my in-laws. While I was busy with preparations, my in-laws and sister-in-law stayed up all night in the living room and eventually slept there. The next morning, after they left, Matt looked at me happily. It felt strange. Everyone was very pleased, and they said they'd come to stay over again. It's good we live here. He said this casually and disappeared without helping. They're coming again. I thought, dreading the next Christmas. But it wasn't even a month before my in-laws and sister-in-law showed up again. We'll be staying over tonight. We've already ordered food so as not to trouble you, Kelly. Just take care of the payment. They entered the house, and my sister-in-law immediately started preparing for a party in the living room. When the fried chicken and pizza arrived, I was responsible for the payment. Matt hadn't returned yet and was unaware of what was happening. When he finally came home, I confronted him. It's troublesome when they suddenly decide to stay over. You knew about this beforehand, didn't you? Seeing me upset, Matt responded with his usual "what's wrong" expression, but I told you, they said they'd come again. They're always welcome here, no? I was utterly dumbfounded by my husband's reaction. Seeing my in-laws enjoying themselves as they pleased and leaving without even caring how I feel, I genuinely worried they might take over our home. When I discussed this with my brother and his wife was furious. That's terrible. You need to talk to Matt and change this situation. While I appreciated her advice, I couldn't see my husband being helpful in resolving the issue. My husband was under his parents' control, and lately, he's been coming home late, leaving us no chance to talk. My brother and his wife were just bewildered by what I shared. My in-laws would come over even when my husband was not around. It seemed like my words didn't affect them at all. We were seriously wondering how to change the situation. Then, my brother seemed determined and said, maybe I should talk to Matt. As your brother, he might listen to what I have to say. I was a bit hopeful that my husband would listen to my brother's advice. However, when my brother called him over, Matt brought his parents and sister with him. Kelly is now part of our family, so I don't want you to interfere. No matter what my brother tried to discuss, my father-in-law would interrupt, making a proper conversation impossible. Are you so bothered by us enjoying ourselves with Kelly in that wonderful condo? Are you jealous because it's better than your old house? My mother-in-law joined in, saying something mean to my brother. If I were there, I might have exploded in anger, but my brother just endured and asked, "Please don't come to the condo anymore. Did you call us here just to say this? What a waste of time." My sister-in-law yelled and stormed out with my husband and in-laws. My brother intended to talk to my husband alone, but the situation escalated with my in-laws and sister-in-law present. Even my brother was appalled. Hearing about this, I felt embarrassed by the behavior of my husband and in-laws. I'm sorry for putting you through this. That family is really strange. I apologized over the phone, and while my brother laughed, I sensed his mixed emotions. Yeah, they are odd. Kelly, maybe you need to rethink your future with Matt. His words resonated with my own feelings. As I was about to hang up, feeling down, my brother's wife suggested something. Is Matt up to something suspicious? He's always coming home late. Her words made me anxious as I was already suspicious of my husband's actions. I feel the same way. Something's off. I shared my suspicions of his infidelity, and my brother unusually raised his voice. If he's cheating while you are taking care of the family, that's unacceptable. I'll look into it. Hearing my brother's firm promise, I felt a bit relieved. My husband was blissfully unaware of the turmoil. He comes home late every night, and I have no idea what he's up to. My in-laws staying over has become a routine. But one day, I noticed they had spread their belongings all over the room. After they left, I found suitcases and boxes in the closet, packed with clothes, as if they planned to live here. I was furious, but then I realized this condo isn't mine. If my husband is indeed cheating, I'll just leave. What my husband and in-laws do from here on is no longer my concern. With that thought, I suddenly felt lighter. Even if he wasn't cheating, I couldn't stay with a husband who prioritized his parents over me. Then, I started wondering about my sister-in-law's husband. She visits often, but I never see her husband. Could there be trouble between them? If my in-laws and sister-in-law plan to move here, what would happen to him? I barely knew him since we only exchanged greetings at the wedding, but I wonder how he felt about this situation. Matt had mentioned that he hadn't seen his sister's husband much, so the idea of all of us living together seemed daunting. But ultimately, I had no intention of living with them, so maybe I shouldn't be too concerned. While I was pondering this, the day finally arrived. When I returned home from work, I found my in-laws and sister-in-law relaxing in my home as if they owned the place. We'll all be living here from now on. Matt gave us the keys, they said, as if it was a done deal. I just quietly observed my sister-in-law, who seemed thrilled about the arrangement. Seeing my calm demeanor, my mother-in-law asked me with a hint of annoyance, "Why are you so calm? Even Matt kept it a secret from you." Hearing this, my frustration with my husband grew even stronger. I couldn't forgive Matt for deciding to move his parents in without my consent. But that day, Matt wasn't home, and my frustration remained unresolved. As I remained silent, my father-in-law said smoothly, "We'll give you $200,000 in alimony, so please divorce our son and leave this condo. Matt isn't to blame, but since we are receiving this condo, we should pay you compensation." I was infuriated by his confident demeanor, but their misunderstanding was so absurd that I couldn't help but laugh. I thought, wow, this is incredible. It's like watching a drama. Trying to suppress my laughter, my sister-in-law said sharply, "You should consider yourself lucky for getting the compensation, so just pack your things and leave." Without a word, I grabbed my bag I had prepared and decided to leave the house. But just before leaving, I told my in-laws, "I'll bring the divorce papers later, so please prepare the condo's contract as well." Hearing about the contract, my in-laws' faces lit up with joy, clearly misunderstanding that they would get the condo. Just bring the documents and we'll settle the contract quickly. Seeing my father-in-law's happy face, I couldn't hold back my laughter anymore and left the house. When I arrived at my parents' home, my sister-in-law greeted me with a smile. Good timing, Kelly. The results of Matt's infidelity investigation just came in. When I met my brother inside, he looked serious. He really was cheating. You should dump him right away. I told my brother about being kicked out of the condo and being pressured to divorce, which made him even angrier. What the hell? That's so unreasonable. Unbelievable. It was rare for my brother to show so much anger, so I kind of panicked. Then, my sister-in-law came in and calmly soothed my brother. Well, it's not bad. Usually, you don't get $200,000 in compensation for being cheated on. Indeed, it seemed like my in-laws were acting as if they were paying the compensation in exchange for getting the condo. Anticipating my in-laws' reaction upon discovering the truth about their son's betrayal, I felt a bit excited and went to the condo with my brother the next day. Upon seeing us, my father-in-law immediately brought up the condo contract. Today's the day, right? Did you bring the contract? But we started by having Matt sign the divorce papers. We'll be using this luxury condo for our family, so don't be mad. Matt said, seemingly unaware that his affair had been exposed, and made a snide remark after signing. After the signing, my brother firmly told Matt, considering you cheated on Kelly and lied to her, this compensation is only fair. This doesn't settle everything, but stay away from her from now on. Hearing about the affair, my in-laws were shocked, and Matt turned pale. Matt, did you really betray her? Is that why you weren't coming home? Even as my father-in-law questioned him, Matt remained silent. Meanwhile, my sister-in-law, seemingly realizing something, muttered, "That's just how marriages are. The person being cheated on is also at fault." Ignoring my sister-in-law's words, I urged them to proceed with the condo paperwork. Regardless of what Matt did, the compensation has been paid, so the condo is ours now. My father-in-law declared, starting to sign the documents. The compensation was already in my account, so he seemed eager to finalize the contract quickly. While Matt watched his father sign, he was visibly unsettled and avoided eye contact with both my brother and me. The signing is complete. From now on, this is our home. You have nothing to do with it anymore, so please leave quickly. My mother-in-law triumphantly declared, so we left without saying anything. When we got into the elevator, the extent of my in-laws' misunderstanding gave me a headache. It's unbelievable. Even after reading the documents, they don't get it. They're completely convinced that the condo is theirs. My brother seemed to be worried about something else. Where did that $200,000 come from? I don't remember Matt's family being that wealthy. Indeed, it was implausible that my husband's family suddenly had such a large sum of money. But now, I couldn't even ask my husband about the source of the funds. I could only wonder. Then, about a month after the separation, my ex-husband and in-laws showed up at my parents' house in a flurry. Why do I have to pay the rent for that condo? It's supposed to be mine. My ex-husband screamed in anger, and my father-in-law pleaded in panic. We can't afford such high rent. We paid the compensation thinking we would get the condo, not knowing it was a rental. We need a refund. My mother-in-law also exploded in anger. We didn't need to pay $200,000 in compensation. Give us back the excess amount. As they all insisted on their selfish demands, my brother calmly told them the truth. You see, I'm actually the owner of that condo. The entire building is mine. Hearing this, my ex-husband and in-laws were at a loss for words and finally quieted down. Realizing that they had signed a rental agreement and had misunderstood what my father-in-law had signed, he couldn't hide his regret. Even if the condo was Kelly's, it wouldn't transfer to Matt after a divorce. Don't make us laugh. Even after my brother's explanation, my mother-in-law shook her head, still insisting on getting the compensation back. We accepted that compensation as a response to the infidelity. We can't return it after it's been paid. When I responded calmly, My mother-in-law began to speak hesitantly. We plan to use the condo as collateral for a loan. But now, we can't repay the $200,000. Her confession surprised me. My ex-husband and in-laws all slumped their shoulders. Where's your sister? I asked, noticing the absence of my sister-in-law, who was usually with them. My ex-husband awkwardly answered, it seemed she was cheating too, causing a divorce negotiation with her husband. She's being asked for compensation but is already in debt because of the payment to Kelly and can't borrow more. That's what was going on. When my sister-in-law hinted at something during the revelation of my ex-husband's affair, I finally understood what she meant. They continued to cause a fuss about the condo rights and the return of the compensation, but my brother and I stood firm. As my ex-husband was leaving, he threw one last remark at me. Because of you, I even got dumped by my girlfriend. He left with tears in his voice. I had only done what was necessary. It was their fault for being unfaithful. My ex-husband's family had to leave the condo because they couldn't afford the rent and started a new life in a cheaper place. My sister-in-law was with them, and they were all struggling to repay their debts. They were barely managing the interest payments, and now my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, who used to stay at home, were working outside, but it still wasn't enough. I heard that the once close-knit family was now just blaming each other, burdened by the alimony of both and the moving expenses. Meanwhile, I returned to my brother's peaceful home life. Just when things seemed to be settling down, my brother and his wife shared some wonderful news. My sister-in-law was pregnant. When my brother shared the news with joy, I felt happy too. Seeing my brother's family filled with happiness made me long for a similar future. I want to cherish love and build a warm family where we respect each other like them. So, I'm open to new relationships, hoping to meet a wonderful man and someday have a family of my own filled with smiles, just like my brother's.